Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, now Fox News contributor. Sir, nice to have you back on our program, and thanks for being here today. Bibi Netanyahu is in the hospital, set for release tomorrow and Tuesday, being treated now for hernia. This is what he said on Sunday on not giving an inch to Hamas.
I'm doing everything and will do everything to bring our loved ones home. If we don't stand together to rebuff attacks, then nobody else will do it for us. If we give in to another demand every 2 days, will this bring about a deal? This is the opposite of the truth. It would paralyze negotiations for freeing our hostages.
You got two stories here. You got the folks in the street, and you know what their position is. And you've got a prime minister so far who has shown that he's not turning his back on this fight in Gaza. To you, then, what gives, if anything, here?
Well, Bill, I think what we've seen even in the last few days with them taking some 500-plus terrorists out of this hospital. Right? Think about this, Bill, a hospital we take for granted now when we hear about this. 500 terrorists out of a hospital in Gaza. We realize that the fight is not over. Hamas is not yet defeated, and that is the central task. If you're going to get hostages back, the only way to do it is to put pressure on Hamas and pressure on Iran. Those are the two pinch points. They're the decision makers for releasing these hostages. And anything else will just show weakness. There'll be more hostages taken. We shouldn't forget, we watch these protests, and we sometimes here at home forget there's Americans that continue to be held there. So while we're all focused on, rightfully, on the Americans held in Russia and Americans held elsewhere, we need to remember there are still Americans held by the Iranians in Gaza. And putting pressure on Hamas, not letting UN resolutions pass that call for ceasefires. That's a U.S. mistake. Not allowing Hamas to confiscate food that's being delivered there and use it for their own purposes. Those are the things that encourage Hamas to continue their war. They need to be defeated, Bill. That's the only answer to getting these people home.
Okay, you mentioned the hospital, Al-Shifa Hospital, northern part of Gaza, Gaza City. That's been the center of a lot of action over the last couple of weeks. Former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett sent this tweet out a few hours ago. He talked about 6,000 civilians evacuated. He talked about 200 Hamas terrorists killed, 500 Hamas terrorists captured, and 0 civilian deaths. All right, that's what the Israeli position is. We have not heard what the Hamas position is. But what he went on to say is that this is unprecedented in urban warfare. Now, you're an army man. You understand it better than most. How do you interpret the operation that is still, well, wrapped up as of now because the Israeli forces pulled back in the last 24 hours?
Bill, you know this. We've seen this when our young men and women were fighting in Iraq and elsewhere. Urban warfare is incredibly difficult. If they pulled any of this off remotely, as described by former Prime Minister Bennett, that is an amazing accomplishment. Even if there were a handful of civilians that were killed, to get 500 terrorists captured, to kill a couple hundred more, and to have that much minimal collateral damage is a remarkable feat. It only goes to say what I think most of us have known all along, Bill. The Israelis are fighting this in a way that the world should recommend to others. They're doing this in a way that's fundamentally decent, doing their level best to defeat Hamas while Hamas is trying to put civilians in the way of the line of fire. I guess one other thought as I watched what happened in that hospital. Imagine that just 2 weeks ago, let alone 2 months ago, Bill, that there had been a ceasefire, that we'd all weakened to the pro-Hamas part of the Democrat Party and said, you know what, let's just hang it up. Let's put down our weapons and let's call it good. Those 500, 700, 900 terrorists would perform October 7th all over again, and that would put even more Americans at risk. There's only one way through the fire here, and that is to continue to attack and to continue to take out that infrastructure, and then for the United States to support the Israelis in this important undertaking.
Do you think there's a role for U.S. forces in Gaza, or is that a pipe dream?
No, I don't see a role for U.S. forces, and frankly, no one, neither the Israelis nor the Gulf Arab states have asked for that yet. I don't think that will, in the end, make sense. There'll be a solution to this, but that solution can only be contemplated once Hamas and Iran have been defeated.
Yeah, fair point. Thank you, sir. We'll talk later in the week. Mike Pompeo.
Bill, thank you. Bless you. Have a good day.
Thank you for coming.